Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Tom Cunningham. I'm the stakeholder manager for the Beacon Wind project. I work at Equinor. I'm really excited to kick off today's community engagement event focused on North Shore Long Island communities and the Beacon Wind project. As you see, we've got on the screen a poll. For those of you who haven't played yet, this is your last chance to do so. Please give a click, see what you think. See if you're right. How many homes can 3.3 gigawatts of offshore wind energy power? Going once, going twice. Anna, why don't you share the results?
Sure. So we've got most of you answered correctly, 2 million homes. And we're talking about an average New York home. I know we had questions in the past about what kind of home, so an average New York home. But 3.3 gigawatts powers about 2 million homes. So
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. I know people are still trickling in, but we're gonna get started because we've got a lot to cover. Welcome, everyone. I'm gonna put this poll away. Again, my name is Tom Cunningham, stakeholder manager for the Beacon Wind project. I've got a lot of colleagues from Equinor and partner organization CARP Strategies and some of our supporting consultants and experts from different from different groups here with us tonight. We're really excited to engage with you, our partners and stakeholders in Long Island, to share with you our project and go through any details, and most importantly, to hear from you any questions you might have. Anna Fisiak, you see on the screen, is my co-host, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Anna,
sure.
And to run through some quick housekeeping and get going. Thanks, everyone.
Great. And I invite everyone to remind me to slow down because I tend to live in New York City, so I tend to talk fast. I am from Long Island though. So welcome everyone. So let's jump into some housekeeping. I'm Anna Fisak, Community Engagement Manager for Equinor across our Beacon Wind and Empire Wind projects, engaging communities in Long Island as well as Queens. Okay, see if I can get my slides to work. All right, so first, if you need Spanish language translation, it is available. Click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window. It is also available in the web browser version if you're calling in from the web browser. Moving on along. Please stay muted to reduce background noise and generally to provide a better experience for everyone. Look for the button at the bottom left. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. We will use this in the Q&A portion of the workshop and in the breakout rooms. FYI, this is an interactive workshop. We want to hear from you. So I hope you use that raise hand button. So if you have questions during the presentation section of the workshop, please type them in the chat. We'll do our best to respond to your questions in the QA portion of the workshop after the presentation. Our colleague Harrison Foyer is going to keep an eye on the chat for us, so thank you, Harrison. Please keep in mind there will likely be questions we cannot answer on the spot, and we'll have time to cover questions in the breakout rooms if we don't get to all of them in the Q&A portion. So note, we're recording the presentation section, not the breakout groups. So if you don't feel comfortable being on video, feel free to turn your video off. We're recording for folks who couldn't make it today and to give an opportunity for them to give feedback. Our goal is not to keep track of who said what, but instead what was said and why it matters to you. All right, I hand it back to Tom. Oh, actually, I missed my slide. Sorry, Tom. So as part of our engaging this workshop, we want to stress our community agreement for how we show up in the space. So if you're shy, challenge yourself to share. If you talk a lot, challenge yourself to give others space. We want to hear from everyone. So dialogue and diverse perspectives result in a better project. So let's be respectful of others' opinions. Speak one person at a time. This not only shows respect, but ensures that we capture all your insights and comments and questions. And I'll say it again, but this is meant to be interactive, so please contribute. So I think we finished with the poll results, so we'll head into the agenda. So I'll hand it over to Tom now. Oh, Tom, you're on mute.
Thanks, Anna. Today we're going to introduce Equinor, and that includes giving a broad overview of all of our projects and commitments in New York, as well as our approach to bringing these projects online. So we'll go into some detail on that. Then we'll dive into a specific overview of the project Beacon Wind itself, a lot of the technical details. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about some of the public processes about how the public can be involved in what we're doing. Have a 15-minute Q&A session and head into a little breakout group so people can talk to some of the experts we have here in a more close setting and get your questions answered. Then we'll all report back. So we aim to have this all wrapped up at 8 o'clock. Keep moving along. And of course, this is interactive. So keep your questions coming in the chat, and then we'll get more active in the Q&A portion. Next slide, please. Anna, would you like me to present the Equinor?
No, I got this.
That's for you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I was just having a hard time finding my unmute button. So before we get into project specifics, we wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to our company and who Equinor is. So today we have a robust team on hand from various disciplines within our project to provide substantive answers to your questions. We have folks from fisheries, permitting, technical team members. You'll meet them in the breakout sessions today. So a little overview of Equinor. Equinor is a broad energy company. Our headquarters are in Norway. We have about 20,000 employees worldwide, but we've been in the US since the 1980s. We have clear ambitions to be a leader in the energy transition and have more than a decade of experience in offshore wind. We've partnered with other leading companies in the energy transition around the globe. And this map gives a good view of the scale of our commitment in the US and our global aspirations. So Equinor is honored to have been chosen by New York State to supply clean and local offshore wind energy to the largest population center on the East Coast. The Empire and Beacon Wind projects are 50-50 joint venture between Equinor and BP, with Equinor as the operator. As you have seen here in red, we are developing two projects for New York, Empire Wind 1 and 2, and Beacon Wind 1. Together, these projects will power about 2 million homes. Today's presentation will focus mostly on Beacon Wind 1. As part of our commitment to the region, Equinor will also invest in workforce and economic development initiatives, as well as support regional environmental monitoring and research. And I should note that we're still very early in the process for identifying and managing these investments, but we look forward to engaging the public more as they take shape in the months to come. So we understand energy costs are very top of mind, and that is especially the case right now. We've all seen our energy costs skyrocket, pointing to the fact that energy independence is important because we all want predictability. To that end, we're bringing renewable energy that will not only offset the impacts of fossil fuels, but will be cheaper to develop and more predictable in the long term. We're also building an industry with shared benefits across economic development, environment, and health. Across our New York projects, NYSERDA estimates an increase of less than $2 total on your monthly power bills. These costs are shared across the state. And NYSERDA has selected proposals for contract negotiation through a rigorous and competitive process that includes cost of energy, economic benefits, and project viability. So a lot of reason for that, why Beacon Wind was selected to provide energy to New York State, because it's more cost effective than the alternatives. So I don't need to tell everyone here that Long Island has a place for having long been a place of innovation and for having been on the cutting edge of science and industry. From our role in helping mankind land on the moon, to our industry's growth in building out as America's first suburb. Long Island's spirit for innovation is matched only by our passion to protect the environment and a need to preserve our way of life. Surrounded by coastlines, we're also well aware of the impacts of a violent climate, from Sandy to Ida, and we're seeing the impacts more frequently. But we're adapting. We're raising our homes, installing solar panels and generators, organizing beach cleanups, conserving wetlands, protecting the health of the Long Island Sound, and taking the pledge to be a climate-smart community. We need all of these solutions on the table to deal with the challenges ahead of us. Offshore wind is one of the multitude of solutions we need. So we know that our industry has an obligation to put more into the community than just the power that we're putting into the grid. Our values drive our community-based development model and inform our commitments for how we work with local communities. Our values are open, courageous, collaborative, and caring, and how we deliver our projects are just as important as of what we deliver. And these are important values we hold in pushing forward our community-based development model. So New York State, as many of you might know, has one of the most ambitious clean energy goals in the country, including procuring 70% of state's energy from renewable resources by 2030. Offshore wind will contribute significantly to meeting that target, and Equinor will play a major role in helping New York City reach its goals. Our two projects, as I've stated, will provide 3.3 gigawatts towards that 9 gigawatt goal. We're building the industry into the future by investing billions locally. We're also understand we're in New York State because of the strong advocacy of many of the groups in this room. You are all important stakeholders in the project. I also want to note here that Equinor will be, with its partner BP, is just one of the many companies working to develop this industry in New York. So we're ensuring that New York State becomes the manufacturing hub for the entire offshore wind industry in the US, and capturing the development potential from this industry locally in New York. Equinor is constructing new offshore wind manufacturing hubs at the Port of Albany and the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. And Equinor is funding more than $100 million in port upgrades on top of the city and state funding. Both ports will employ hundreds of New Yorkers to assemble components for wind projects up and down the coast. We're also aware that we're building the workforce of the future to support this growing industry and working with local partners, some that you see here. Now I'll hand it over to Tom to go into some project specifics.
Thanks, Anna. And I'm really proud to be with the company and with a project that is so anchored in the community benefits and the jobs and the co-benefits, broadly speaking. It's not just about the power itself, it's about all these other aspects as well. And it's not just what we deliver, it's how. So that's a big part of why we're with you all today. We want to be as open as possible and bring everybody to understand what we're doing, and that we really want to do it in partnership with all of our stakeholders. So let's go to the first slide. Thanks, Anna. This is a quick schematic to show offshore wind, the big picture in terms of moving from where the power is generated and how it gets into your homes. You may ask yourselves, why offshore wind as opposed to other forms? Wind blows stronger and more consistently offshore than it does over land. And the waters off the coast of Long Island and New England have some of the world's best offshore wind resources. Importantly, also, offshore wind provides energy where and when we in the United States need it. It's close to populated areas like New York and Long Island. And interestingly, wind also blows strongest during times of peak energy use. So in the morning when we're getting ready for work, and in the evening when we're coming home. The turbines capture strong ocean winds and convert it to clean, zero emissions electricity, which is carried through a series of cables to an offshore substation in the lease area, then to a substation on land, where it is then distributed to our grid. The project goes through federal, state, and local jurisdictions, which means we must go through rigorous permitting processes at multiple levels, with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management at the federal level, and with New York State's Public Service Commission, their Article 7 process at the state level. And the project also, of course, must meet local regulations at the point of interconnection. And we've got two of our permitting experts with us today. We're happy to answer questions about technicalities related to the permitting process. Next slide. This is the same map you'll see, but it's a slightly different image, a slightly different text from before. And I just want to emphasize here the specifics about the lease area itself. the Beacon Wind sitting in the middle of this little box or shapes. The Beacon Wind 1 project was awarded by New York State in 2021, but the federal lease area, we received an award for developing it back in 2019. It's about 200 square miles in size. It sits 20 miles south of Nantucket Island and 60 miles east of Montauk Point. You can see that Beacon is one of several wind farms to be developed in this area. And those are those empty boxes around it. Those are partners that may be delivering power to New York or up into New England. And the operations and maintenance for the project, I mean, the vessels that will help build it and will keep it running, will be based mainly at the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. And we expect Beacon Wind to be operational beginning in 2028. Next slide. This is a really good image. At the heart of our project design is a grid of wind turbine generators, approximately 82 turbines with a generation capacity of 15 megawatts each. They will extend up to 1,086 feet above sea level, 300 meters, which is a feat of engineering on the scale of the Empire State Building. You'll note that the grid itself, those dots in the box inside, is the product. It represents a 1-by-1 nautical mile grid layout. That layout is the product of collaboration between developers in this federal lease area, federal agencies, fisheries groups, neighboring developers, and other stakeholders. This is specifically to allow for activity by fishermen and other marine users to operate in and transit through the lease area. And one rotation of the turbine's blades can power an average New York home for approximately 1.5 days. That lease area, let me also note, half of it is what is subscribed to the Beacon Wind 1 project. We're still actively pursuing offtake opportunities for the other half, which we would call Beacon Wind 2. So to be continued on that. Next slide. Here is a picture of the cable route, first running from the lease area all the way in through Long Island Sound, and then a zoom in of the East River. Our agreement with New York specifies that the Beacon Wind 1 project must interconnect into a specific zone within the New York ISO grid. In other words, directly into New York City. The cable is planned to run through federal waters entirely until it reaches Long Island Sound, at which point it will run through the New York waters of the Sound. We are developing a route that utilizes minimal onshore disruption. The proposed subsea route was identified based on combined extensive analysis of publicly available data of the Sound, along with feedback from experts in science, government, and industry to identify a route that minimizes impacts to the environment and to current installed assets, as well as to marine users and other stakeholders, all while balancing considerations for technical feasibility. In short, we're doing everything we can to select a location for the route that will minimize impacts. And this proposed cable ultimately will allow us to deliver power from the project to millions of consumers, again, with minimal onshore disturbance, that is completely contained to an onshore site that's completely contained on land that has been previously industrialized in the Astoria area of New York City. And that will entail no crossing of homeowners' land and result in minimal impacts to wildlife and green space. Next slide. This is a picture to show the interconnection area at Astoria. We'll come up the East River, as I mentioned, to Astoria in Queens. The precise cable landing and substation sites are not yet finalized, but they will be located at existing industrial sites in order to minimize onshore routing and public disturbance. Now, this floating box in the water is just to show the size and possible layout of the substation. It won't be hovering above the water, but it would sit somewhere on this industrial previously developed land. I have to say we're very excited to be bringing clean renewable energy to this specific location because there is convenient interconnection to the grid, but also because the area has the nickname Asthma Alley due to the impacts of pollution from fossil fuels that on the people who live and work there. So this project is a great example of energy transformation at the local level, literally bringing renewable power to a site historically blighted by other forms of power. Next slide. This is a sketch of the project timeline. As you can see, we got the first lease award in 2019, and moving forward through 2022, you can see we've been conducting a lot of surveys. We're currently wrapping up that phase with a lot of extensive studies and surveys of the lease area and the cable route, working to understand the wind and water conditions, as well as marine wildlife behavior, seabed conditions at the site and along the cable route, and so on. Looking at and now we're also in the phase of filing these permits, which Anna will speak about in a moment. And you can see going forward, next year we'll begin important filings for the state and federal regulatory process and begin construction after 2025, only once the permits are filed and approved and preparations are completed. And as I mentioned, the plan is to generate first power in 2028. I know it's a lot of information moving quickly. Oh, I just muted that person. Let me hand it over to you, Anna. I'll take it from here.
Thanks, Tom. I'll just go over some ways for you for the public to get involved. There's a quick summary, an update from the project, but now let's see how you can get involved in the public processes. So right now, so because it includes electricity transmission components, the Beacon Wind project must file an Article 7 permit from the New York State's Public Service Commission. It is a process intended to ensure new electricity infrastructure best meets the needs and expectations of New Yorkers in an environmentally responsible way. We recognize this permit is an important step, not just to receive state approval to proceed, but because it is a robust. All right. Well, we'll ask you to stay muted, please.
Lily, could you remove Samuel John from the event? Thank you.
I'm just reminding everyone about our community agreement. So we recognize this permit is an important step, not just to receive state approval to proceed, but because it's a robust process with opportunities for public input. In other words, it is a formal means by which we, the developer, must do right by the public. The Beacon Wind 1 project submitted its Article 7 filing in May of this year. In the lead up to the filing, we published a notice in local papers and informed local landowners about the proposed routes. Going forward, we'll have you can follow the proceeding as well as comment during the public statement hearings. You can find out more about the Article 7 process at www.dps.newyork.gov/article7.htm or on our website, www.beaconwind.com. So you can also, before we head into the Q&A and the breakout sessions, we plan to continue hosting public meetings virtually and in person in the coming months for Beacon Wind. So please sign up for updates on our website or follow us on Twitter at Equinor Wind US. We also have a hotline where you can leave us comments and questions. You can also email us at beaconwind@equinor.com. You can stay informed on the federal permitting process at www.permits.performance.gov/projects by searching Beacon Wind, and the state process at www.dps.newyork.gov and search for case number 22T0294. We'll have multiple opportunities for public comment, and we anticipate BOEM public meetings to happen in the fall, as well as for Article 7. And please stay tuned for announcements of the public statement hearings. All right, now I'll proceed